Good afternoon, everyone. So today our topic is about the Taylorism. Taylorism is also called as the scientific management, and it's the name of the approach to management, industrial and organizational psychology. It was Frederick Taylor who is considered as the father of the organizational studies, or you can say the scientific management. He was a mechanical engineer and a management consultant, and he initiated in his monograph in 1911 the principles of scientific management, and it was closely associated with production methods and manufacturing factories, and Taylor's own name for his approach was scientific method. At that time, the factories were springing up everywhere, and standardized ways did not yet exist to manage the large groups of people and handle the increasingly complex work. So Taylor wanted to make organizations more standardized, efficient, and productive by studying their work processes closely. So, the scientific management is the term he used, and he did a lot of studies, he did a lot of research, he wrote a lot of books about it, and he applied the science to work. Now, what does this mean by applying the science to work? It just means that studying the tasks carefully and systematically at a micro level to speed up the work. So he just wanted to break away from the common sense, that's the rules of thumb, or you can say the thumb rules, that he saw as unproven and inefficient. So workers, had around self-styled ways of doing the things. They were just, passed around, and he said that it's really known and this is the best way to do the things. Next is that the division of labor. Division of labor is a concept, and it's the practice that he really believed in, and he wanted to point it, and he by this division of labor, he meant that instead of doing the whole project, where you just did it from beginning to an end, you will just only do it in one or two little steps. So by division of labor, he wanted to just divide the work processes into small steps, or you can say simple steps or the separate steps. And each steps or two was performed by a different person. So by this division of labor, he wanted to determine the one best way to boost the productivity. So what, according to the Taylor, this one best way meant? He meant by saying this, like optimizing the way that tasks were performed and simplifying the jobs enough so that the workers could be trained to perform their specialized sequence of motions in one best way. That's what he meant by saying the one best way. So, he wanted to determine, as I told you, that one best way so that to boost actually the productivity. That's what he is really known for, like looking for one best way to solve the riddle. Next is the hierarchy, and by hierarchy is also the concept that he really believed in. And by hierarchy, he wanted to clear chain of command that separated the managers from the workers. And the managers here just would design work processes and enforce how the work was performed. So employees, as a result, they just followed the directions. They just became doers then, and the managers were then only thinkers. So Taylor, he believed in the selection, he believed in the training and compensation. By selection, training, and compensation, he just wanted to select and train the high-performing workers, or you can say the first-class employees, and match them to a job that was best suited to them. So, he saw this as an idea, and he believed the most productive workers should be paid more. So employees, here, they could not meet the new higher standards. They were just fired. So he thought that on an average, most employees were not, working harder, and he didn't, have a very high opinion of the employees, and he just wanted to get rid of the people that couldn't meet the high standards, and he would just, fire them, and only the good people will be left. Next is the method, and for the Taylor, his method was like the time and motion studies. And by time and motion studies, he meant that he just wanted to, figure out the least amount of the time on an average, or you can say it took to perform each task and each even part of each task. And by motion, here it was like what were the fewest number of motions required for each small task. So he just wanted his employees to work as if they were the machines. As I already mentioned before, that he was a mechanical engineer by training and background. So that's what they do. They design and build the machines, and that's what he wanted. He wanted his people, he wanted his employees to act like the machines. So he's one of the important or a great we can say the experiments as in shovel experiments. They were just the great examples of the time and motion study. So the idea here is that he said, you know, listed we can say that instead of using the shovel, why just can't we figure out the exact amount of the pound that the shovel should hold to make it work fastest, or we can to make it work faster. So the Taylor concluded that the efficiency of the whole operation, it could be greatly enhanced if each man had a better shovel. So at the time, the tools used in the factory, they were like one size fits all. But a man who had to break the dense, heavy substances such as the iron ore, the labor, he would just end up with the back breakingly heavy loads each time he dug in. So by the end of the day, these workers were so exhausted that they could barely move. And on the other hand, the workers who had to scoop light materials such as ash were stuck with identical shovels as well. So a full scoop was so light that, as the Taylor put in, it was manifestly impossible to even approximate a day's work. So no matter how furiously the workers hosted their tools, but by the Taylor's reckoning, the optimal weight of the loaded shovel, that should be around 21 pounds, so that a man could swing that wheel all day without becoming the exhausted later in his shift. So by calling a spade concept, that means instead of giving everyone the same shovel, regardless of the tasks, the Taylor offered workers 8 specialized shovels that could fit various jobs. So sure enough, the men, with the custom shovels got more work done, and in fact the tools nearly quadrupled the productivity of each shovel laborer, so improving the average work's daily output from 16 to 59 tons. So this was his smart shoveling concept, and Taylor experimented with the shape, with the size and weight of the shovels to determine the impact on productivity. And his experiments that showed that no one shovel was best for all the materials, and by designing the task specific shovels, Taylor tripled the amount of the material a worker could shovel in a day. So this dramatically improved morale as well as since the workers were paid by a ton. So here this smart shoveling concept means increasing productivity meant increasing the income as well. Taylor then introduced many concepts that were not widely accepted at the time. For example, by observing the workers, he decided that labor should include rest breaks. Okay, so he said that the laborers should be given the rest so that the worker has time to recover from the fatigue. Today we see that army uses it during the forced march. The soldiers are ordered to take a break of 10 minutes for every hour of marching. And by giving these breaks for 10 minutes, this allows for a much longer forced march than the continuous walking. Then the Taylor, he recognized that there is certain suitability of certain people for particular jobs, and that's true. But the most important difficulties of this theory, according to Taylor, is that the first difficulty is that it ignores the individual differences. Now how it ignores the individual differences, the most efficient way of working for one person may be inefficient for another. So that's why how this theory ignores the individual differences. Next is that it ignores the fact that the economic interest of workers and management are rarely identical. They are identical, so that both the measurement processes and the retraining required by the Taylor's method would frequently be resented and sometimes sabotaged by the workforce. Taylor's ideas can be seen as the root of a very influential series of developments in the workplace, and with the goal being eventually elimination of the industry's needs for like unskilled, and not only unskilled, and later perhaps even most skilled laborers in any firm, like directly following the Taylor's recipe for deconstructing a process. The scientific management theory of Taylor, it has four principles, very important principles. Like the first important principle is that managers should gather the information. Here, the managers first should gather the information, then they have to analyze it and reduce it to the rules, laws, and finally to the mathematical formulas. Next is that select and train the workers. So managers here, they should only scientifically select and train the workers. The third principle is that techniques used by the workers. Here, the manager should ensure that the techniques developed by the science are used by the workers. So they have to make sure that the techniques that are used by the workers should be developed by the science only. Fourth principle is that apply the work equally. Here the manager should apply the work equally between the workers and themselves, where the managers apply the scientific management theories to planning, and the workers, they perform the tasks, pursuant to their plans. So therefore, all these four principles, they have been applied in education as well as in education institutions in order to create the effective management and administration. Now, how they, have been applied in the educational institutions, the manager should scientifically select and then train or teach and develop the workers, whereas in the past, workers choose their own work and train themselves as the best as they could. So in this aspect, every worker is studied, then developed to bring out their best faculties. So the worker is also trained to do the higher, more interesting and more profitable class for work. Actually, by this point, the Taylor was emphasizing the need for workers' education program. So this is all about Taylorism, and with this topic we completed the whole first unit, that is educational management and administration. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be starting our next unit, that's on leadership. So I'll see you tomorrow again. Till then, take care and stay safe.